So when it comes to Polkadot in 2026, from a fundamental standpoint of view, what have they done? In today's video, I'm going to give my thoughts and I'll explain what impacts that could very well have moving forward when it comes to Polkadot, even though nothing I say is financial advice and even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. So there's two major things that I think Polkadot accomplished this year so far. Like for instance, we take a look at the recent announcement of, I guess, a more clarified understanding of Polkadot's native token called DOT in terms of the tokenomics. Like for instance, we saw that the maximum supply was announced to be capped at 2.1 billion. So in terms of hypothetical future potential inflation, maybe it doesn't seem as sort of, I guess, worrying as before, in which case, when we take a look at Polkadot right there, that is a pretty massive achievement because sure, projects out there like Solana, for instance, like Dogecoin, the ones that have like an infinite maximum supply, basically their maximum supply is infinity, they have measures in place to kind of mitigate the inflation. But of course, at the end of the day, it does have an infinite maximum supply, in which case means that there is literally no ceiling to that maximum supply, right? So when it comes to DOT, again, having that clarified to be the maximum supply being, again, 2.1 billion, that I think gave more clarity when it comes to Polkadot overall. Now, the second, I think, major achievement that they have achieved basically was Polkadot Hub, in which case, if we take a look at that right there, one of the key aspects of that is simplifying, I guess, development when it comes to apps. So I think that was really cool because, of course, when it comes to that, this could very well have, I think, future implications in the case of potential developers and also to a certain extent, maybe institutions taking a look at Polkadot. So I think that could really matter because if there's more developers building, let's say there's more things going on, there's more popularity, sometimes it just brings that place along with the ride. For instance, we take a look at not too long ago, right? Something called Accurast. Now, we already know that when it comes to the Accurast mainnet, it is a Polkadot paired chain. But besides that, we have to consider Accurast recently announced how they've seen so far 750 million on-chain transactions. Pretty impressive. So when we think about that, Accurast is allegedly this compute network. But again, at the end of the day, if we consider that the Accurast mainnet is a Polkadot paired chain, and then we saw Accurast recently announce that major milestone, basically, that major kind of update in regard to their statistics, I think that's pretty commendable. I think that's pretty impressive, actually, at the end of the day. Not to mention, if we take a look at it, something else that I found just a lot of people kind of ignored like that was how, remember Polkadot not too long ago when the first ever Polkadot spot ETF in the US was announced? Well, I do. That happened this year, actually. It was actually 21 shares Polkadot ETF. So if we take a look at that right there, that's really impressive. Now, people like to say, well, who cares about 21 shares Polkadot ETF? But I think a lot of people arguably do because that is a pretty impressive milestone, actually, in regard to somewhere along the lines of Polkadot, in my opinion. So I think that is a clear case of, let's say, something like 21 shares, something of that size, even caring about Polkadot. That's 2 thumbs up for me. Not to mention, if there is more of the supply of DOT, let's say, being held through, like a Polkadot ETF, let's say, I think that right there really gives Polkadot a little bit more stability in the long term. Now, is it showcasing it currently? No. I mean, DOT is below $1.50. It's actually around $1.22 at the time of this recording, but I'm just saying, like, at least when it comes to that right there, I think it could have some major future implications in regard to maybe creating a little bit more stability when it comes to Polkadot in regard to if there is more of the percentage of the supply being held through, let's say, a Polkadot ETF. It's like, for instance, we see Ethereum and Bitcoin. Yeah, sure, they still have like sometimes these intense movements, but at the same time, it's not as like, I guess, intense as we've seen historically speaking. And I think some of it could have been due to the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. This is just my personal perspective. So we've seen what that did for Bitcoin and Ethereum. So if that happened to like a small extent when it comes to Polkadot, especially moving forward, I don't think it would surprise me. But this is just my perspective. Now, Because Polkadot is around $1.22, it just really means that it's very close to its all-time low, in which case is actually around $1.13, which may sound very counterintuitive because it's like, wow, Polkadot's pullback has been that extensive. Yes, but if anything, what does that mean? It means that it's actually very far away from its all-time high. Its all-time high actually is $55. We're over 40 times lower than Polkadot's all-time high, by the way, currently. But does it ever really need to go back to that point? I mean, at this point, just because it's so low, I don't think it really needs to anymore, personally. Because if I take a look at, let's say in the case of Polkadot, if it goes back to even, let's just say, $10.50, which we clearly saw back in December of 2024, I mean, come on, right? We're over 8 times lower than that. That's a thing. So do I really need it to ever go back to $55 at this point? No. That's just personally my mindset currently, just because of this pullback. Now, had Polkadot never had this intense pullback, then of course, going back to like $10.50 approximately, that's considered like maybe sometimes a little bit boring. Like let's say DOT held up at around $8 or whatever. Then yeah, okay, it goes to like $10.50. What's the point? That's just sometimes the way you take a look at it. But because it's not, because it had a bigger pullback than what a lot of people thought it would have, it's to the point that, you know, just going back to where it was in December 2024, I just wouldn't find it to be a bad thing. Like I wouldn't be upset if it could return back to that point. However, when it comes to Polkadot, I don't think its focus, fundamentally speaking, is outdated anyways. Like if we take a look at, let's say in the case of Polkadot, being really focused on interoperability, really being focused on connecting blockchains together, that is like a niche that doesn't go out of style like that. Because if there's more blockchains that are going to appear, why would that be a bad thing when it comes to Polkadot, right? If there's more of what it's trying to help, why is that a bad thing? Again, Polkadot's aim basically is to try to connect blockchains together, primarily speaking. Other projects out there, they're worried if other blockchains appear, but I don't know if that same principle applies here, because when it comes to Polkadot, again, it's literally trying to help connect blockchains together. But even besides that point though, I take a look at Kusama, which is Polkadot's canary network. You know, that's still doing pretty okay as well. Like for instance, you know, Kusama hasn't been doing the best as of late, still below $5, but you know what, still. You know, Kusama is currently ranked 267th in the world, by the way, in terms of market cap. But even besides that, people like to ask me, oh, but when is Polkadot ever going to recover? I'll never be able to know that answer. But one thing I do know, though, is that I want to stay patient, wait, and just be there in case maybe there is a hypothetical roller coaster. That's the way to take a look at it. I'm not trying to chase, I'm trying to anticipate, so I'm holding. But I'm not telling anyone to do anything. This is just purely voluntary on my part, but I'm choosing to do so. So I'm just going to stay patient currently and just wait. That's it. I'll never be able to control when the market could ever pick up, but I can control my patience. I can control me waiting and holding, which I'm going to continue to hypothetically do, even though I'm not telling anyone to do anything. However, if there's more updates moving forward when it comes to Polkadot, I'll be sure to make a video on that, so hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a very nice day. It's Willie the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.